Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolf Pit with another episode of What Are We Eating? Anytime I ever thought about New Jersey, the only two things that came to mind were the Meadowlands and a Taylor pork roll sandwich. And don't worry, if you've never heard of a Jersey pork roll sandwich, neither had I. Well, that was until I met this little beauty, who happens to be from New Jersey. So let me properly introduce my girlfriend to the channel. This is Sandra, and like I said, I'd always seen and heard about the Jersey pork roll sandwiches and how good they were, but I'd never tried one, and I could never find Taylor pork rolls anywhere around me. But a couple weeks ago, we finally found some, and I finally made and tried my very first Jersey pork roll sandwich, and it was fantastic. And if you're wondering what a Jersey pork roll sandwich is, it starts off with a Kaiser roll, 1 to 2 slices of pork roll, a fried egg, American cheese, another 1 to 2 slices of pork roll, and top it off with a Kaiser roll. And you can also add ketchup if you like, which I did. So while I was able to find the Taylor pork roll at my local Martin's food store here in Virginia, I was also able to find Hatfield pork roll and the Giant brand mild pork roll. So we're going to try all three brands and see which one is the best. Starting off with a 6-ounce package of Giant brand mild pork roll that cost $2.49. Here's the very short list of ingredients. 2 slices of the Giant brand pork roll have 230 calories, 22 grams of total fat, 7 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 45 milligrams of cholesterol, 500 milligrams of sodium, 1 gram of carbohydrates, no fiber, 1 gram of sugars, and 7 grams of protein. Now we have our skillet over medium-high heat, and we're going to add our 2 pieces of Giant pork roll. And then we're going to cut 3 slits in each piece to prevent curling and cook for about 2 minutes per side. And I did try the pork roll cold right out of the package, and it did taste very similar to bologna, but didn't really have a ton of flavor. So after cooking for 2 minutes on each side, our Giant brand pork roll is ready. Now let's set our Giant brand pork roll aside and go over a Hatfield 8-ounce pork roll that costs $3.79. Here's the slightly longer list of ingredients. Per 2 pieces of the Hatfield pork roll, there's 170 calories, 14 grams of total fat, 5 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 35 milligrams of cholesterol, 500 milligrams of sodium, 3 grams of carbohydrates, no fiber, 1 gram of sugars, and 8 grams of protein. Now again, our skillet's over medium-high heat. Now we're adding our 2 pieces of Hatfield pork roll, cut our 3 slits, and let it cook for 2 minutes per side. And I also tasted the Hatfield pork roll cold, and it had quite a bit more flavor and texture than the Giant brand did. It kind of reminded me of a combination of bologna and Spam. Speaking of Spam, Hormel contacted me about my homemade Spam video. I'm going to try to get a video out about that tomorrow, so stay tuned. You won't want to miss what this email said. After cooking for a total of 4 minutes, our Hatfield pork roll is ready. Taylor pork roll that costs $3.79. Here's the list of ingredients. 2 slices of the Taylor pork roll have 260 calories, 24 grams of total fat, 10 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 50 milligrams of cholesterol, 860 milligrams of sodium, 2 grams of carbohydrates, no fiber, 2 grams of sugars, and 14 grams of protein. Now once again, we have our skillet over medium-high heat. We added our 2 pieces of Taylor pork roll, cut our 3 slits, and then cook for 2 minutes per side. When I tasted the Taylor pork roll right out of the package, it was very interesting because it had a funky flavor like prosciutto. And I mean that in a good way, especially if you like prosciutto. And the texture was much firmer, kind of like a salami. So after cooking for a total of 4 minutes, our Taylor pork roll is ready. Now before we put our Jersey pork roll sandwiches together, we need to toast our Kaiser rolls. And just a little bit of butter in the skillet over medium-high heat, just until they're slightly toasted. And then of course you can't have a pork roll, egg and cheese sandwich without a fried egg. Traditionally the eggs are fried, but you can also scramble them if you like. Now let's put our giant brand pork roll sandwich together. And if you'll notice, two of the sandwiches we're making are not going to have any toasted Kaiser rolls. That's because this little monster ate two of them right off the side of the table after we were done with everything. So to our giant brand pork roll, we add our over easy fried egg, our slice of American cheese, and a good squirt of ketchup. Then put the top Kaiser roll on, gave it a swirl to spread out the ketchup, cut it in half, and I've got to say that cross section looks pretty tasty. So into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. And it was shockingly pretty bland, but some of that could have been my fault. I intentionally did not salt the eggs because I didn't want the sandwich to be too salty since the pork roll already had sufficient amount of salt in it. But I also didn't put any pepper on it, which would have helped. I forgot. And of course, the bun wasn't toasted, which would have added another layer of flavor. But overall, I really couldn't taste the pork roll itself. So I'm going to give the giant pork roll sandwich an average score of 5 out of 10. Next up, we have our Hatfield pork roll sandwich. And once again, we're adding our fried egg, our piece of American cheese, and a good of ketchup. And then we added the top of the Kaiser roll, gave it a good spin to spread out the ketchup, then cut it in half. And once again, the cross section looks pretty good. However, I overcooked the egg slightly. And then into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. Now that's a little bit better pork roll sandwich. The pork roll had a smoky flavor to it and the texture was firmer and meatier. But again, a little salt and pepper would have gone a long way along with the toasted bun. And the funny thing is, I was expecting the pork roll to have a hammy flavor to it, but it really doesn't. And I'm giving the Hatfield pork roll sandwich a 7 out of 10. Now last but not least, and on a toasted bun, we have our Taylor pork roll egg and cheese sandwich with a little squirt of ketchup. And then the top bun with a twist for the ketchup spread. And then of course we cut it in half for you, the people's viewing pleasure. Now that looks like a proper pork roll sandwich. Look at how much thicker the Taylor pork roll is than the other pork rolls. And then when I bit into it, I realized why Taylor pork roll reigns supreme in New Jersey. Because it has a very nice, firm, meaty texture, which at least to me made it a much more substantial sandwich. It is salty, but also has a hint of sweetness to balance out the salt, and just overall has the best flavor out of all three. And I'm giving the Taylor pork roll egg and cheese sandwich a 9 out of 10. Thank you all very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your family and friends and your enemies, and I'll see you soon.